Hi, I'm Pam, and today I'm ranking some video games. So today I'm going to be talking about multiplayer cooperative games. I used to be mainly a solo player when it came to video games. I didn't really get the appeal of playing with someone else aside from like playing Nintendo and passing the controller back and forth when I was a kid. But over the last few years, I've discovered how fun it is to play games with friends, whether that's online or couch co-op. Just so you know sort of what kind of games I like, so you know if my rankings are going to be at all relevant to you. I really like puzzly type games when it comes to co-op. I also rarely ever get tired of zombies, so you're going to see a lot of zombie games on here. I'm not a fan of MMOs or persistent worlds, so you're not going to see World of Warcraft or Minecraft or any of those sandboxy shared crafting world games. These are mostly games that have a set beginning and end point, and you can complete them just with a friend. Now, I am also going to be sticking mainly to modern-ish games for this list. I know there's a bunch of, NES games I played as a kid on the couch with someone, but it's really been a long time since I've done that, and it's also less likely that people are going to have access to those systems than just like an Xbox, a PlayStation, or a PC. So if you're looking for something to play with friends, this is the video for you. I've got, I think, 53 games that I'm going to be ranking and talking about. I'll let you know the specifics of them, how many players, if it's online or couch co-op or both, the systems they're available on, to the best of my knowledge. Also, if you're looking, a great website is called Co-optimus, which gives a rundown on any games that you can play co-op. That is a great resource if you're looking at things. But in the meantime, let's get to the video, but first, a word from our sponsor. This part of the video is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you're like me and often find yourself stuck on the question, what should I have for dinner? HelloFresh can help make your mealtime simple. Take the hassle out of mealtimes this spring by getting HelloFresh to deliver pre-portioned ingredients and recipes right to your door. Save time shopping and planning for meals and go out and enjoy the nicer weather. I also really appreciate that HelloFresh helps cut down on waste. By giving you the exact portion of ingredients that you need, you can cut down on food waste by at least 23%, which helps both the planet and your wallet. There are so many delicious recipes to choose from each week. Tonight I'm looking for something healthy with lots of protein, so I can't wait to have the cheesy stuffed chicken with sweet potato mash. It'll fuel me whether I'm going rock climbing or playing co-op video games. Go to HelloFresh.com and use the code CBTamed50 for 50% off, plus your first box ships free. If you're looking to make home cooking fun, easy, and affordable, try out America's #1 meal kit, again by going to HelloFresh.com and using the code CBTamed50. Alright, now we're going to start the rankings. I've got my tier maker list over here. You won't be able to see all the games yet, so I can just fit in trailers. But the first game, starting alphabetically, is A Way Out, which is a game that is designed specifically for co-op. It's available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, and you can play either online or local with a friend. You have to play this two-player. You cannot play it solo. So the fact that it's designed around co-op really makes it stand out, and it's a really fun game. It's about two men who meet in prison and stage a breakout. The story has lots of twists and turns. The gameplay is constantly changing. You've got some just sort of walking around talking to people. You've got some stealth puzzles. You've got some shooting. You've got some driving. There's tons of mini games to play as well. And I had a ton of fun when I played this. I actually played it with two other people in the room, just sort of passing controllers back and forth. But this was a ton of fun, and it's starting off the list on a right note with the first S ranking. Aliens FireTeam Elite is a newer one for PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, I believe. You can play with 1 to 3 players online, and it's obviously in the Alien universe. It's sort of a survival third-person shooter. You can go through the co-op campaign. There's a bunch of different classes to choose from to play as. I felt like this game was just okay. My co-op group only played it because one of us was missing, so we could play a 3-player game, and we didn't find it all that interesting. It got pretty repetitive, even though there's different aliens and they can come at you from vents and everything, and there's ambushes. From mission to mission, nothing really changed that much. So overall, I just found this one a little bit dull, and it didn't really hold anyone's attention, so this one's getting a C. Among Us was all the rage during COVID when everyone was cooped up in their houses, and this is available on basically anything: consoles, PC, mobile. I think each game is between 4 and 15 players online, and I kind of see this one as a blank slate. It's basically like a game of werewolf or something, like a social deduction kind of game. You have to find out who the imposter is. The game isn't that good on its own. Like, there's just a bunch of mini games that aren't all that fun. I personally only like playing the game when I'm the imposter. I find when I'm not the imposter, it's pretty boring. But this is one that totally depends on the group of friends you're playing with. If you're playing with strangers, it's probably terrible. But if you've got a fun group of friends who are on voice chat and being silly with it, it can be a lot of fun. But just sort of like as its own thing, I guess a B. Like, it's fine. It's not a good game, but it's a good platform for talking to friends. Oops, I've mislabeled something. Next up is the Ascent, which is an isometric shooter. It's sort of like in a dystopian kind of world. You're just going around getting quests from people, shooting a lot of things. My normal 4-player group, this is 1 to 4 players online, PC, Xbox, PlayStation. We all lost interest. Like, we only played it for one night before kind of giving up on this one. There's a lot of travel time. There's a lot of dialogue. Like, this really feels like a game that you would play on your own because there's so much just wandering through towns, talking to NPCs, getting quests, and just travel time between quests is excessive. And the biggest thing that this game did to me, or rather the smallest thing, is that everything is tiny. The UI is tiny, the subtitles are tiny, the menus are tiny. It's really hard to see anything that's going on. And yeah, all of us playing it just found it kind of dull and bounced off it real quick, so it's getting a D. Back 4 Blood is basically a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, which I will talk about a little bit later. It's available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with 1 to 4 players online. There is a story campaign along with a little hub area where you can upgrade your characters. The upgrade system uses cards, which I found a little bit awkward. No one playing this was a huge fan of it. It was a little repetitive. Enemies were pretty spongy. At times there were just so many special zombies being thrown at you that it just kind of seemed excessive. Like, the game didn't know how to sort of pace itself in terms of enemies rushing at you at any point. The characters were also really annoying and they would not shut up. But yeah, this was just, we did manage to get through the entire story campaign, but at the end of it, everyone was a little bit disappointed. So Back 4 Blood is getting a C. Now, Battletoads, this is a game that was originally on like NES, Genesis. However, it's on Rare Replay, so if you have an Xbox and Game Pass, you can play this one for free. And in my opinion, Battletoads is a game for masochists and children who have time to memorize the game beat for beat. I played this co-op, I don't know, around a year ago with a friend who had memorized the whole thing from childhood, and I had never played it before. And this is an incredibly hard game single player, and 2-player only makes it worse. Like, it's just harder multiplayer. Now, was I masochistic enough to practice the turbo tunnel for like 3 hours on my own so that we could do it as a pair? Yes. But then even once you're finished the turbo tunnel, the game's still really fucking hard. So I don't really recommend playing Battletoads multiplayer unless you really want to like test your friendship, because it's just too damn hard. So I'm giving Battletoads a C. Broforce is a really fun one. It is available for PC, PS4, and Switch. and it is 1 to 4 players, either local or online. I played this just couch co-op with one friend, I think one friend. It's a really sort of over-the-top, hyperbolic take on 80s action movies. You play as a sort of randomly selected character based on an 80s action hero. There's like, you know, Rambo and Ellen Ripley and just a bunch of characters that you'll recognize. It's very like America, fuck yeah, in a very over-the-top way. There's explosions, you're destroying the environment. Overall, it's just a lot of fun to play. It's really easy to just like pick up and play through a few rounds. I'm going to give Broforce an A. The next two, I'm kind of going to talk about them together because if you were to ask me to tell you the difference between them, I couldn't. But Call of Duty Advanced Warfare and Call of Duty Black Ops 2, 3? What game is this? 3? 2. Okay. I played both of these through on the co-op campaign, and they're fine. They're Call of Duty games. They're not like games that I gravitate towards too. I mostly played them because they did have a local couch co-op campaign. I think you can also play them. Oh no, I think it's only split screen as far as I know to play the campaign through in co-op. And you know, you watch a very nicely rendered cutscene, and then you play a little, and then you watch another nicely rendered cutscene. I do find that in split screen, it's really hard to see what I'm shooting at, but overall the games were fine. I'm going to give them a B. You can also play multiplayer online in zombie mode, which is fun as well. But yeah, the Call of Duties all kind of blend together, but they're fine. Cannibal Cuisine is available pretty much on everything. You can play with 4 players online. This is basically a worse version of Overcooked, which I, again, will talk about a little bit later. You're playing these cannibals, and you have to kill tourists and cook them up and feed them to your island god. And it's not great. Like, it's a little on the janky side. The level design isn't that good. I mean, part of the thing about these games is that you really have to coordinate and move around each other and not run into each other, but I just found these levels weren't the most thoughtfully designed, and they felt a little frustrating to play a lot of the time rather than just kind of fun and stressful. So I'm going to give Cannibal Cuisine a C. Castle Crashers is another one that you can get pretty much anywhere. I was just playing the remastered version last night, actually, with my friends. You can play 4 players, local or online. You pick among a selection of knights, each of which gets combo moves. They've got like their own little magic ability. You can get little pets to follow you around, which do things. You can get different weapons to use. This is just a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's very cartoony. It's very juvenile, like there's a lot of poop humor in it. I don't love beat-em-ups. I find them pretty repetitive. This one at least is like bright and colorful, and I don't know, like the enemies are pretty spongy. We're probably gonna finish this game during co-op night, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. I'll still give it a B though, if you're looking for just like a fun sort of arcadey game. It's pretty good. Children of Morta is available pretty much anywhere. You can play it with a second player, either online or locally. It's kind of like a Diablo type game, except it has beautiful pixel art. It's sort of like a top-down game. You can pick between a number of different characters, all part of this same family. They go delving into the dungeon, fighting monsters, getting loot, finding secrets, and between dungeons you get the story sort of drip fed to you. I think this is a really great game. Like, I prefer it to something like Diablo, which it's very similar to. Solo, it's great. Co-op, I think it's just as good, so I'm giving this one an A. Cuphead is an amazing game that I love a lot. It's available, I think, everywhere. You can play 2 players locally, so couch co-op. I think, like, on its own, Cuphead is like an S-tier game. As multiplayer, it's a little under that. I just find that multiplayer actually makes Cuphead a lot harder, and it's already pretty difficult to begin with. It gets confusing telling your characters apart, and there's just seems like enemies have more health and things. So it's fun, and like you can definitely play it co-op if you're willing to put in the work, but I feel like co-op should make things easier, not harder. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But this is still a really great one. Great music, great animations, really tight gameplay. It's an A. So here I'm kind of grouping a bunch of games together. The Dark Pictures Anthology, which I believe consists of 4 games right now. It's available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation. You can play online with, I believe, 2 players, or you can play with up to 5 players locally. And there's multiple ways of doing it co-op. You can have it so that each player is controlling a particular character, or you can have it so that one person's playing and then everyone else is kind of voting on the decisions you're making. It's sort of like an interactive movie type thing, except you also like walk around and examine things. I don't find these games and stories in general are as strong as Supermassive's bigger games like the Quarry and Until Dawn, but they're still really fun to play as a group. I've even played them with just like one person streaming and everyone else watching on Discord and just yelling out answers and not even needing to control things yourself. So I'm going to give this a B. They're fun to play, although I find sometimes the stories and the characters don't really connect with me. Deep Rock Galactic is available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with up to 4 players online, and you play a bunch of dwarves who are mining for resources. There's 4 different classes, all of which play fairly differently and have their own benefits that can help the team. You sort of go onto a planet. You have to find what your objective is. It might be collecting something, might be building not a mine, but building something, and then you get attacked by enemies and have to make it through and then have a daring escape to your ship once you've done your objective. And I really like this game. It's one where, you know, just playing a mission here and there is a lot of fun. The dwarves are cute. You can upgrade them. You can change their clothes. They all have cute little dances that you can do back at your base. I have a lot of fun every time I play this, and it's getting an A. Diablo 3 is available pretty much on everything. You can play with 4 players online. I think you can also play 2 players local. I didn't write that down, but I'm almost positive I've played this locally before. Diablo's fine. I don't like loot-based games, and I find half of your time in Diablo is sorting through loot, and half of it's actually fighting monsters. But it's a pretty good one to play with friends. The story's not that interesting, but it also is not bogged down in that at all. It's just going through a bunch of dungeons, fighting a bunch of monsters, getting way too much loot, but it's pretty fun overall, so that's a B. Dying Light is available pretty much on everything. You can play with up to 4 players online. This is a zombie survival parkour game, and it's not built in the best way for co-op. Like, this is very clearly a single player game that your friends can join you in, but in terms of story progression, it kind of follows the host of it. Something I really didn't like was that my friends and I, we played through the whole campaign together. We got to the final segment and we weren't allowed to play together. Everyone had to finish the game on their own. So that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about this game, where it had previously been more positive. Something I really like is that once you get to a quest or something, you can just like warp to the rest of your party if one person gets lost or is lagging behind. But it also has some annoying things, like if anyone is in a conversation with an NPC, no one else can travel anywhere or like leave the building, which was kind of annoying. I'm giving this one a C. I just feel like it's not the best game for co-op and is probably better off single player. Elden Ring is a great game. It's available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation. You can play with up to 3 players online. And honestly, there's nothing like taking down a boss with your friends in Elden Ring. That's so much fun. Unfortunately, the whole way that multiplayer is built is just stupid. Like, you can't just join your friend's game and play as long as you want. If you die, you leave the game, have to get summoned again. If you like leave an instanced area, you leave the game, have to get summoned again. It's just it's so fun when you finally get into it and it's working, but just what you have to go through to actually get in and stay in a game with your friends is just unnecessary. So Elden Ring, if you're looking specifically for multiplayer, see. Escape Academy is available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play 2 players either locally or online. It's all done in split screen, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an escape room game. You play a character who's trying to be an escape master, and you're kind of going through your studies of learning how to do that. It's got a bit of a story, but the story never weighs things down too much or takes too long to get through, and what it basically is a series of ever more complicated and larger escape rooms that's just really fun to solve puzzles with a friend. It's nice to have one person like looking at an item and reading off something while the other person like fiddles with dials or opens up codes. I had a lot of fun with Escape Academy, and they're also consistently putting out new content and new escape rooms. Lots of fun. This is an A. Generation Zero is on PlayStation, PC, and Xbox. You can play with up to 4 players online. And this is one of the worst games I've played in the last little while. It's sort of a survival-y, I think, third-person shooter. The world has been taken over by these machines. There's no humans. Like, other than your party, I don't think I ever saw a human in the game, which made it feel really dead and empty, even though sometimes you're getting quests just from notes or voice messages that are left around. It's just very janky. You travel around on a bicycle. You get into terrible bike accidents because they're very hard to control. It's just very repetitive, and the world just feels so empty. And other than the emotes, which are amazing and the best part of the game, this wasn't any fun to play. My group bounced off it real fast. A D. Hidden Agenda is another one that I think is by Supermassive, another one of the sort of interactive movie type games. This is available on PlayStation 4 and mobile, I think. I played it with a bunch of friends. There's a few ways to play this one. You can do it sort of co-op with one person controlling it and everyone's hiding into the app on their phones and voting on what to do. Or there's like a competitive mode where everyone has a hidden agenda that they're trying to push. And the hidden agendas seemed really random and like they didn't mean much. I didn't really like the story here. It was kind of like a Saw thriller kind of thing. It wasn't good. Like, the characters weren't good, and the decisions you made just made their characterization wildly different. This was sort of one of the most disappointing of these types of games I've played, so this one's getting a D. It Takes Two is another one that was built specifically for co-op. You can only play it co-op. It's available pretty much anywhere. You can play 2 players either online or on the couch. It's a split-screen game. You play parents who are getting a divorce, and their horrible little child wishes upon a star, and they shrink down into tiny toy versions of themselves, and they need to get through their now gigantic house in order to get back to their true forms and back to their daughter. And it's a really fun game. Just like A Way Out, who's by the same developer, the gameplay changes up all the time. There's so many different levels. There's like a musical level and a garden level, and I forget what other levels, but each character gets a different sort of equipment or ability in each world, so that changes all the time. You need to use your abilities to work together in order to progress through things, sort of doing platforming, a little bit of puzzle solving. This one also has a lot of mini games. I don't think I'm putting this quite on the same level as A Way Out, just because it was a tiny bit too long, and the child was terrible, and sometimes the story was annoying. But in terms of gameplay, really fun, a great one to play with a friend. This is an A. Next up is Jackbox, and I'm just basically ranking Jackbox as a series. This is sort of the ultimate party game. You can play it on pretty much anything. Depending on the game, it's generally from like 2 to 10 players, and there's something for everyone. Like, I personally hate any game with drawing, but I love any game with trivia, improv, or lying. So I always have a great time when I play Jackbox with friends. You start it up, only one person needs the game, everyone else can join on their phone. It's fun for people who play a lot of games, people who don't play many games, and yeah, just if you're ever looking for a party game, this isn't gonna let you down, so Jackbox. S. Jamestown, or Jamestown Plus, is available on PC, PS4, and Switch, I believe. And this is a scrolling vertical shoot 'em up. It has beautiful pixel graphics. You can play it with 1 to 4 players locally. I really like this because I don't see that many multiplayer shoot 'em ups, and though it's been a while since I've played it, since I don't have a PlayStation, it's a really good game. I liked playing it alone. I liked playing it co-op. There's different ships you can get. You can level up your ships. It's also made a little bit easier because anytime your co-op partner dies, you can resurrect them. And overall, I think this is a really fun game, and it's an A. Killing Floor 2 is available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, and you can play this with 1 to 6 players online, which is nice. Usually things don't go above 4. This is an okay game. It's very over the top. You're constantly being bombarded with hordes of enemies. There's a ton of different levels that you can do, but the objectives are generally kind of the same. There's like 2 or 3 mission types that are just sort of repeated through the different levels. The classes are interesting and they're fun. Again, it's just sort of very over the top. A good time, especially since you can play with up to 6 players. I'm gonna give this a B. Kingdom 2 Crowns is one of my favorite games that I've played so much solo. It's available pretty much on anything, and you can play it with a friend locally. And depending on what you're looking for, I think this is fantastic. I played it locally, just like glued to the couch for hours at a time. It's a kind of chill game, even though it does get stressful at times. It's basically a very simple kind of survival base builder resource management game where you're collecting coins and building up defenses and finding villagers to become soldiers for you, and every night you're attacked by the greed. So you need to make sure that your defenses have been built up enough. And 2-player, the game is enhanced because generally your town's in the middle and then you can go explore either side. So 1 player can go on each side, 1 player can watch the walls on each side for attacks coming in. If 1 player loses their crown, which is how you lose the game, the other player can sort of get it back for them. I love this game solo, and I think it's just as good co-op, so this is an S. Alright, now we have the Left 4 Dead games, and these are available on Xbox 360 and PC. Pretty sure it's backward compatible, so you can play it on a newer Xbox. You can play 2 players locally, or you can play with up to 4 players online. And these are just sort of the quintessential zombie shooter games. Each player takes a different character who have a bit of a personality. There's a good range of weapons. The level design is really good. The special zombies are interesting, and like sometimes they're spooky and sometimes they're gross. I think that both of these are great. I just played through them I don't know, maybe a year ago or last summer or something, and had a ton of fun playing online. I'm giving both of these an A. Lovers in a Dangerous Spacetime is one I just beat recently. It's available for PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. It is local only. You can play with up to 4 people. This is just a really fun, cute, arcadey game. You are driving around in a spaceship, being attacked by enemies and having to rescue your friends, and your ship has all sorts of stations. So like you can use the engine to drive, you can use the shield station to shield yourself, there's gun stations, there's defense turrets, and you basically just have to communicate and cooperate in order to direct your ship around, not blow up, get your friends and get out of there. It has a fantastic soundtrack, and it's just a really fun game to play. I think it would be just as fun with 4 players. I only played with 2, but 4 players, then you could like have more coverage over the station. But really good game. It's an A. I guess the next one isn't totally modern, but I love Mario Party, specifically the GameCube Mario Parties, which I think is 5 through 7. I wish those were available on Switch or something, because I haven't heard much good about the Switch Mario Party. But you can play with 4 players locally, maybe 8 if you have one of those controller extender things. But this is just a series of mini games. You go around a sort of game board. Sometimes you're playing like 2 against 2. Sometimes it's every man for himself. You're collecting stars. There's a bit of randomness in it, so it's not just skill, but also a bit of luck, so anyone can win. I love these games. I also always win them. But Mario Party is an A if you've got a GameCube lying around. Now we have Overcooked. The first one is available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, I think, and it is only local. You can play with up to 4 friends. It is a game about cooking different recipes. You basically get your orders up. You have to go get the ingredients, cut the ingredients, put them together, and deliver them. And the levels are all very funny and strange. You could be on like 2 different trucks who are driving along beside each other, but occasionally they like move out of the way so you can't travel between the 2 things. Or sometimes you need to throw ingredients to your friends, or there might be water that you can fall in. And it's a really fun game. I like it a lot to play sort of locally. Overcooked 2 is, I believe, also on Switch, and this one also adds online multiplayer, so you can play with up to 4 players, either locally or online. It's fairly similar to the first game, otherwise maybe a little bit more polished, but Overcooked 2, great time as well. A. Next up is what I consider the quintessential puzzle game. It's Portal 2. You can play it on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. You can play 2 players either locally or online, and it's just an amazing game. It holds up so well, both Portal games as their own puzzle things. The fact that this one has its own specific co-op campaign is just so good. Just lots of teamwork, lots of learning your abilities, lots of physics puzzles. Just, I think, one of the best puzzle games ever made. It's got snarky robots. It's got dark humor. Your own robots do little dances and high-five themselves before like getting exploded by GLaDOS. Really good game. If you are looking for a 2-player game specifically and you haven't tried Portal 2 yet, go play it. It's an S. Next up is Prodeus, which is available pretty much anywhere. You can play it with up to 4 players online. And this is just a very fast, frantic, frenetic, kind of Doom-like game with sort of low-res, kind of pixelated graphics. There's not a ton of variety here. Like, there's a bunch of different levels and environments, but the gameplay isn't super deep, but it is very fast and fun. It's a good one to just jump in and out for, play a level or 2 here. This is a game that my co-op group sort of goes back to sort of between other games just to, you know, get a few little frag fests in, and it's fun. I'd say it's a B. So the Quarry is another one by Supermassive. It's available on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. You can play with 8 players, local or online. Again, this is one where you can either have 1 player play and everyone sort of vote on decisions, or each player can control certain characters and you can like pass the controller back and forth, or if you're online, just each player just gets their turn to control things. I think this is the best story and characters and writing of any of the Supermassive games. I've played through this a few times. It was fun to play on stream with an audience and people talking about things. I've played through it with friends on Discord with, again, people just like shouting decisions at one person. If you like this sort of cinematic, choose your own adventure horror games, I think this is a really great one, so this is an A. Risk of Rain 2 is available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with 4 players locally or online. This is a kind of randomly generated game. You go on a series of planets. You kill monsters, you get currency, you spend that currency on power ups. By the end of the game, you're probably working with like 30 different power ups, giving you maybe double jump or triple jump or quadruple jump, or you're moving faster, or you're doing damage over time, or you're healing as you do damage. Like, you just get so powerful by the end of the game. It feels really good to play. Like, the movement's really cool. There's a bunch of different classes to choose from. I think this is a fantastic game. I'm a little torn because while I think it's an A, the net code on this game is terrible. Like, my 4-player group has never had as much trouble getting into and staying in an online game as we have with Risk of Rain 2. So I'm like, I think it's an A, but it's real frustrating when you can't get in a game or someone gets kicked out and they can't get back in. So I'm gonna give this a B. Fun, but it required a lot of work for us to get to play together. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, was recently just remastered and re-released. I remember having it on Xbox 360, got delisted probably because of licensing things. It's available pretty much everywhere. You can play 4 players locally or online, and this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Not my favorite genre, as I've mentioned. It starts out okay, but the enemies are so spongy. And one thing that's really dumb is that as long as you're punching them, they stay on their feet. So you have to stop punching them in order to let them fall on the ground in order to know if they're dead. So you can't tell if you've killed something until you stop hitting it, which is very annoying, which makes them seem even spongier than they actually are. Near the end of the game, it started getting really glitchy. There started being a lot of bugs. We're having a bunch of issues, and they add platforming to it, which is just unforgivable, I think. Yeah, Scott Pilgrim started okay and just took a nosedive in the second half of the game, so it's getting a D. Serious Sam 4 is a bad game. It's available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with 4 players online, and just bad. Just not fun to play. It's kind of become the butt of jokes in my 4-player group. The sound effects are really annoying. The characters feel like they're just floating through the world, like there's no weight to anything. The guns or whatever, the enemies are all spongy. Sometimes enemies like explode in gruesome ways, which is kind of fun, but otherwise just like the level design, the sounds, the gameplay feel, all just subpar, so this is a D. Spacelines from the Farout is a bit of a strange one. This is available on PC and Xbox. You can play 4 players local or online. It's sort of a roguelite where you're having your own like space airline. So you have a ship, you have to outfit it, you have to take people from planet to planet, you have to keep them fed, you have to keep them healthy. And as you're going, you have to like fuel up your ship, you have to avoid asteroids. It's a bit of one kind of like a little bit like an Overcooked, where you have to, each person has to take on their own section of the ship and deal with things. The problem is that the roguelike part of it really doesn't work for us. My co-op group played it, and we were on one run that lasted probably 2 hours, and then like right before we got to the end, a meteor hit us and our ship blew up, and we basically just lost everything, and no one really felt compelled to start a new run. So yeah, like the actual gameplay was pretty decent, but the whole roguelike part of it doesn't really work. So I'm gonna give this one a D. Strange Brigade is a game that I think is criminally underrated. It's available on pretty much everything. You can play with 4 players online. It is your basic like 4-person monster shooter game, but it does some things which I really think make it stand out and make it more interesting. First of all, it's got like this 1930s style and like narration voiceover, which is a lot of fun. The presentation is interesting. You're going through a bunch of like ruins and things. You're fighting mummies. Something that also sets it apart is that there's puzzles in every level, like a fair number of puzzles. There's collectibles you can get, and that just sort of like adds a little bit more than just shooting things for the entire time. I had a lot of fun with this one. The enemies can get a little spongy, which is kind of common in multiplayer games, it seems, but I think Strange Brigade was really fun to play through, so that's an A. Streets of Rage 4 is another side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's available on pretty much everything. You can play with up to 4 players locally, but for some reason you can only play with 2 players online, which I think is stupid. Like, why can't you play with 4 players online? But either way, I think this is actually a good beat 'em up. Like, I think Streets of Rage 2 is a very good beat 'em up. The character designs are fun. The combo moves are good. I really like the soundtrack. I think this is a good one. I have played this co-op, sort of like couch co-op a little bit, and I think playing it with friends makes it much more interesting than playing it through by yourself. I'm gonna give this one a B. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is another beat 'em up, very much based on a classic beat 'em up of the 16-bit era. This is available pretty much everywhere, and you can play with up to 6 players locally or online. Again, that sort of 6-player limit makes it stand out in that you can have a bigger group playing it together. I think this was really good. I love the pixel art. The soundtrack is amazing. There's lots of good combo moves, and the animations are really fun. And again, that 6-player thing really makes it even more fun, although it personally makes me less likely to know which character I'm actually controlling, but that's my own issue. This is an A. Next up is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and this is available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with up to 4 players online. I have never been a huge Borderlands fan, but for some reason thought this one would be a little different. It has a great concept where you're basically playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons or Bunkers and Badasses. It's got great voice acting. In terms of actually playing it, it wasn't all that fun. My group did manage to finish out the entire campaign, but there were issues. First of all, there's just so much loot, and you spend so much time dealing with it. It's built in such a way that if anyone has their menus open, so if you're looking at your equipment, if you're upgrading your skills, no one else can travel to somewhere else in the world. There's a bunch of random combat encounters, which are kind of just the same thing over and over again, and the missions are just repetitive. The characters do not shut the hell up, and it's just too much waiting around listening to people talk for it to be that good as a multiplayer game. My friends and I ended up having to make rules for ourselves where we could only open our menus at certain points, otherwise it just got way too frustrating. Again, we finished it, but by the time we were done, we had really had enough. Although some of the boss fights are pretty cool, generally not that great. This is getting a C. Torchlight 2 is available pretty much anywhere, and you can play with up to 6 players online. This is basically a less grim version of Diablo. You've got different classes, you sort of go through a town, you get quests, you go out and fight people in sort of procedurally generated dungeons, you get a whole bunch of loot. Overall, it's pretty fun. The gameplay is sort of light, but it keeps it interesting, and I'd give this a B. Warhammer Vermintide 2 was actually a little bit of a surprise to me in terms of how much I liked it. It's available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You can play with up to 4 players online. It's got, I think, 5 different characters that you can choose from who are all quite different. You've got your sort of like ranged archers, you've got a mage, you've got a sort of shieldy person, you've got melee characters, and I played through all as the mage, which I found really fun. It also has a great way of dealing with loot and upgrades. You have to go through the entire mission, and then at the end, you get basically loot boxes, which you can open up, see what's an upgrade, recycle the things you don't want, maybe craft things. But it's really nice that all of the loot and menu handling is done between actual campaign missions, so you're not waiting around for anyone. It also just has a lot of different environments that are kept interesting, and I thought this one was a lot of fun, so I'm giving it an A. The We Were Here series is a great little series of sort of puzzly, almost escape room games. They're available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, and they're both for 2 players, and they're online only. They're online only because you're not supposed to be seeing what's going on the other player's screen. So it's really about communication. You generally get split up in a big castle or something, and one person will get information for part of the puzzle and the other person will get the other information, and you have to work together to solve them. The first game is a little bit on the janky side. I'm gonna give it a B. It's still pretty fun, and if you're playing on PC, it's actually free. It's quite short. I find the next 2, We Were Here 2 and We Were Here Together, just sort of up the quality a little bit. We Were Here Together in particular becomes a much longer game. The first 2 can kind of be done in a single setting. The puzzles get more interesting. It allows you to sometimes be together with your partner, which is pretty cool. These are really fun if you like puzzly games and, you know, are have someone you're good at communicating with. So these are both getting A's. Looks like I've pushed the D's off the screen, but I'll show the full thing soon. We've only got a couple more left. Next up is World War Z, which is actually one of my most played co-op games at this point. It's available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. You can play with up to 4 players online, and there's just so much content here, and it's such a fun game. It's a zombie shooter, but I think it's the best one I've played because you have, first of all, different classes, each of which has their own special ability, and then you've got these great sort of set pieces where you have to set up your defenses because a zombie horde is about to come, so you can set up auto turrets and electric traps and barbed wire, and you get ready for the horde to come and you just try to survive it. And it's just really good. The locations change a lot from mission to mission, and there's also a horde mode, which is a lot of fun, where you're just trying to survive as long as possible while constantly building up defenses on every wave. And they've just recently added even more content and maps, and so this is one that my multiplayer group goes back to quite a lot, and I'm giving it an S. Xeno Crisis is a very arcadey type game. It's available on pretty much everything, including Sega Genesis, if you want to play it there. It's a 2-player local co-op game, sort of like a top-down run and gun. You're going through facilities, you're fighting all kinds of aliens. It has a great soundtrack. This game is very, very difficult. I do like that playing it with 2 players actually does make it a little easier, since you can res your partner if they die. I think this one's a lot of fun. Again, very difficult, but, you know, I managed to get through it. I'm going to give this one an A. And then we have the Zombie Army games. First, there's the Zombie Army Trilogy. They're available on everything, up to 4 players online. It's kind of a standard zombie shooter in the vein of Left 4 Dead or something. There's not really that much difference between the different characters you're playing. You're mostly just picking your loadout in terms of your weapons. You're killing Nazi zombies, which, you know, everyone loves to do that. This one's sort of standard. I think it gets much better in the next game, so I'm giving the trilogy a B. Now, Zombie Army 4 Dead War takes the same conceit, and it just sort of amps it up a bit. This one has some more interesting set pieces. There are traps you can use on zombies, or like zombie sharks that you can lure in to eat other zombies. There are some puzzles around. There's these creepy little tableaus. Everything in this is just a little bit more interesting and better than the first game, so this one's getting an A. Alright, so that's all 52 games ranked. I'm just gonna increase the size of this here so everyone can get a good look of how I ranked everything. Oh, it is a little bit big for the screen, but that's okay. So, I've given a lot of things A's. Usually, like, there's a nice bell curve where B is the most popular, but I guess I just really liked playing a lot of these games with my friends. I do find that there are games that, while I wouldn't play them solo, making them multiplayer just does make them more fun and keep my attention much longer. So this is the final list. I hope it was helpful to you. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to check out the sponsor, HelloFresh. Also, let me know in the comments what some of your personal S-tier rankings are in terms of multiplayer games, anything you want to recommend to me or any other viewers. Let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. If you want to see more, I have a whole playlist of other ranking videos here. I also have a Patreon if you want to support my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.